We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds, and this is a major function of the CIA.
Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Welcome back to Notify America. We have multiple pressing stories to get to, stories that corporate media doesn't want to talk about. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps me out. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't already to continue to get these daily updates. So Donald Trump, he released a statement on Truth Social yesterday criticizing Vivek Ramaswamy, saying this: Vivek started his campaign as a great supporter, the best president in generations, he said. Unfortunately, now all he does is disguise his support in the form of deceitful campaign tricks. Very sly, but a vote for Vivek is a vote for the other side. Don't get duped by this. Vote for Trump. Don't waste your vote. Vivek is not MAGA. The Biden indictments against his political opponent will never be allowed in this country. They are already beginning to fail. And look, Vivek and Trump, for the entire campaign so far, have been on the same page. They haven't criticized each other. Vivek has gone out of his way, for the most part, to, shower praise on Donald Trump, which we know that he likes. From what I hear, Trump's internal polling is showing that Vivek's support is growing amongst his base. Now, what do you think about this? Do you think voting for Vivek is really equivalent to voting for the other side? I'm pretty sure Trump's just trying to shore up his voters before the Iowa caucuses, but there's a massive social media campaign happening right now trying to tear him down, trying to tear Vivek down, calling him Obama 2.0. Look at this video going mega viral right now on X. Watch this.
This has never been a Democratic or Republican idea.
These are not Democrat ideas or Republican ideas.
This is an American idea.
These are fundamentally American ideals.
Imagine they were driving a car and they drove it into the ditch.
If somebody has repeatedly crashed your car,
you can't have the keys back.
Do you want to turn over the keys to the same people who crashed it?
You said Russia in the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back.
I have a newsflash. The USSR does not exist anymore.
The Cold War's been over for 20 years.
It fell back in 1990.
A skinny guy with a funny name.
Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name?
But they sense deep in their bones.
I believe deep in my bones.
E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. We are one people.
I have a dream that we can be one people again. I'm not going to read speeches written by others. What you're going to get from me is what's coming from the heart, my bone.
And look, I personally like Vivek. I think he's the only candidate that actually understands the issues, the real issues, not the bogus talking points that you'll hear Republicans go on and on about. And he can fight back against the media at their level instead of falling into their trap. If anything, I'd rather see people calling out Nikki Haley, Trump calling out Nikki Haley instead. Which brings us to our next story. Senator Rand Paul releases an anti-Haley non-endorsement, comparing her to Dick Cheney in heels, saying she is the Dick Cheney, John McCain wing of the party. Now, he hasn't endorsed anyone yet. He said that he's saving his vote, saving his endorsement, but he did release what he's calling a non-endorsement endorsement. Watch this.
Good morning, everyone. As I told you yesterday, I'm ready to say something about the presidential race. I've had a long relationship with Donald Trump, and there's a lot to like there. I'm also a big fan of a lot of the fiscal conservatism of Ron DeSantis. I think Vivek Ramaswamy has been an important voice. Also have listened to and met with the independent Bobby Kennedy. I'm not yet ready to make a decision, but I am ready to make a decision on someone who I cannot support. So I'm announcing this morning that I'm Never Nikki. And if you go to nevernikki.net, you can let her know that you're not a supporter either. I don't think any informed or knowledgeable libertarian or conservative should support Nikki Haley. I've seen her attitude towards our interventions overseas. I've seen her involvement in the military-industrial complex, $8 million being paid to become part of the team. But I've also seen her indicate that she thinks you should be registered to use the internet, that people posting ideas anonymously. I think she fails to understand that our republic was founded upon people like Ben Franklin, Sam Adams, Madison, John Jay, and others who posted routinely. For fear of the government, they posted routinely anonymously. And I think her failure to really understand that, or to think that you should register through the government somehow for the internet, is something that should disqualify her in the minds of all libertarian-leaning conservatives. So I'm announcing today I'm Never Nikki. You can go to nevernikki.net and sign up and show her that you're Never Nikki also. Thanks.
In another story, anger continues growing at the Biden administration because they're continuing to bomb Houthi positions in Yemen. These far-left Democrats are pissed off about this, and they've begun to protest in front of the White House. Last night, for instance, pro-Palestine protesters, they tried to breach the security fence outside of the White House, forcing D.C. police to hold the fence. Now, the media's barely mentioned this, devoting almost no airtime whatsoever to these White House protesters. And the thing is, you know that if it was on the other side, if these were protesters wearing red MAGA hats, you'd probably see it blanket the news, blanket the airwaves. You'd probably even see the FBI pounding on doors to find out who these people are. But nope, nothing. It's likely just left-wing preferential treatment. That's all it is. In another story, the FBI continues to stonewall over the Seth Rich laptop saga. Seth Rich, he was a DNC staffer, long believed to be the 2016 WikiLeaks source, the person who leaked those DNC emails to the run-up of the last election. A lot of embarrassing emails were released due to those leaks, reaching some of the highest echelons of the Democratic establishment. Unfortunately, Seth Rich passed on back in 2016 in what authorities say was a mugging gone wrong. Well, during all of that, when all that transpired, law enforcement took possession of his personal and work computers, but so far all that information has been kept under lock and key at the FBI. Then late last year, in November of last year, out of nowhere, this Texas man files a lawsuit trying to obtain the contents of Rich's hard drives. What he did was he filed FOIA requests for this information, but they were blocked. Well, a few months ago, a federal judge out of the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Texas issued a memorandum opinion ordering the FBI to release the information contained in Rich's laptops. Well, 2 months later, and we still haven't seen a single document from those hard drives. And on Thursday of this week, the FBI asked the judge to reconsider their request not to produce the documents, arguing that the information should be withheld due to exemptions under FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. Now, what's crazy about this is that the FBI originally claimed that they didn't have any of these records, that they didn't have the computers nor the laptops or any of the hard drives that belonged to Rich. Then eventually they admitted to having all of it. And with regard to Seth Rich being the DNC leaker, what we do know for sure is that after the alleged mugging took place, WikiLeaks offered a $130,000 reward for information leading to the person responsible for it. This is a very important story, something that should be on the front page of the New York Times. Anytime that the government doesn't release information that American citizens FOIA, we should be concerned about it, and this case especially. In another story, the Texas National Guard begins to crack down on migrants illegally crossing the southern border. Videos are being circulated online showing guards in a line preventing migrants from crossing. As people try to cross, they're being pushed back. There's this big line, right, of all these National Guardsmen on the southern border in Eagles Pass, Texas, and they have these shields and everything else, all their military equipment, and they are holding the line. There's these caravans of migrants that are trying to cross, and they're pushing them back. Now, this isn't the Biden Federal Border Patrol doing this. This is the Texas Military Department. This is the Texas National Guard who are doing this. Now, we talked about this story in the last video, how Governor Greg Abbott, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, how he's done waiting. He's done waiting for the federal government to get this under control, which they're clearly not doing, clearly don't want to do. And, he's saying, look, if you're not going to do it, we'll do it ourselves. Now, here's some of the video from that. Watch this. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, we can't show the video, unfortunately. We don't want to violate the terms of service, but this all comes after Texas Governor Greg Abbott, like I just said, passed a a new law that authorizes the Texas Military Department and state police to begin arresting any illegal migrant that they encounter. Then a week later, after he passed that law, the governor then sent his National Guard to seize a park near Eagle Pass, Texas, one of the most commonly used crossing points that these caravans have been using to enter the country. They literally seized the park from Border Patrol. They kicked Border Patrol, federal Border Patrol, out of the area. They put up these barricades to prevent the federal government from entering, saying these measures are to prevent any organization that is perpetuating the flow of migrants entering the southern border. Referring to the federal Border Patrol, watch this.
Department of Justice officials now accusing the state of Texas of blocking Border Patrol agents from accessing several miles along the U.S.-Mexico border in Eagle Pass. According to official sources, Texas has restricted access now to several miles of the Rio Grande down in near Eagle Pass. State authorities late Wednesday began adding razor wire, fencing, and gates to shut off access to Shelby Park and an area under a port of entry bridge. The restrictions come as the number of migrants encountered in the area have fallen to about 500 per day. That's down from the thousands who illegally entered the U.S. less than a month ago. The Texas Military Department says in a statement that its reason for the action is to, quote, restrict access to organizations that perpetuate illegal immigrant crossings in the Eagle Pass area.